Good day, everyone. Today we are to talk about the local government system in the Philippines and a little of the development of the Department of Interior and Local Government, or the DILG, here in the Philippines. Okay, so before that, let me read to you the learning objectives or the outcomes of this discussion. Of course, number one, the students will be able to describe the development of the definition of governance as well as the current perspectives on the word governance to determine the inadequacies and constraints of local government officials as they exercise political authority, to be able to trace the evolution of local government practice in the Philippines, to understand its implication in today's political and territorial subdivisions, and of course to assess the local government of the Philippines in terms of the different Philippine eras presented and determine the best parts of each local government system. Now let's start with the pre-colonial Philippines. Alam naman natin or napag-aralan naman natin when we were in high school or even in elementary na meron ng sariling sistema ng pamamahala ang Pilipinas noong sinaunang panahon bago pa man dumating ang mga Espanyol. Ito ay sa kadahilan ng ang mga Pilipino noon bago dumating ang mga Kastila ay meron ng mga tinatawag na mga community settlements influenced by the different groups na pumupunta dito sa Pilipinas para makipag negosyo or commerce, no? Katulad na lamang ng mga Hapones, the Chinese, we have also the Arabs in southern Philippines, no? So, with those, meron tayong sariling sistema noon pa man. At yun ang unang-una natin papag-aralan. Yeah. So, it is said that people deserve the kind of government they have. And for us Filipinos, we went through a lot. May it be forceful or peaceful in our quest for political maturity and independence. So, unang-una dito yung sinasabi nating barangay or the Filipinos' earliest form of government. It was an independent settlement consisting of 30 to 100 families usually situated along a river bank or at the mouth of a river spilling out to the sea. Ang term na barangay was derived from the Malay word balangay, which means the sailboat. These sailboats were used to transport the early Filipinos and their cargoes to the various sections of the Philippine archipelago. So that explains kung bakit ang independent settlement na ito ay situated along sa mga tabing ilog or tabing dagat. Okay? So, as the earliest form of government, ang barangay ay pinamumunuan ng isang chieftain or ng isang datu. In some other parts of the Philippines, it's just the chieftain and was being aided by the council of elders. Or in tribal communities such as the Cordilleras, we have the chieftain, then the warriors, and of course, hindi nawawala ang mga council of elders who acts as the jury. Now, please don't forget these terms. The barangay as the earliest form of government, an independent settlement comprised of 30 to 100 families and was ruled by the chieftain or the datu. So, ano nga ba ang primary duties ng isang datu? Now, each barangay was ruled by a datu or a village chief who was also known as raha. Some datus were more powerful than others and consequently were duly respected and exercised tremendous influence even to neighboring settlements or communities. The primary duty of the datu was to rule and govern his subjects and to promote their well-being. Now, in times of peace, he was the chief executive, legislator, and judge, and in times of conflict, he was the supreme commander of the warriors. So, the roles of the datu includes being the executive, a legislator, and the judge, as well as the supreme commander during war or conflict. As an executive, the datu executes laws. That's it. And the laws came from him and the Council of Elders being the legislators, no? These laws dealt with various subjects such as inheritance, divorce, partnership, crime and punishment, property rights, family relations, adoption, and loans, mga pagkakautang. Now, these laws were either customary or written. Aside from being the executive and being the legislator, he is also the judge. Now, what is the judicial process during these times, no? Disputes were decided peacefully through a court composed of the chieftain as the judge and the barangay elders or the council of elders as the jury. Now, trials were held publicly and decisions were rendered promptly. The accused, to show his honesty and sincerity, also took an oath. And kadalasan, ang trial nito is through trial by ordeal. Ano? One example is yung boiling water kung saan ilalagay nung accused ang kanyang kamay sa pot na may kumukulong tubig. Pag nagkaroon ng burns ang kamay niya, ibig sabihin that person or that accused is guilty. Bakit ganito ang sistema? Because during these times, they believe that the supreme deity or the supreme God always sides those innocent. So, pag inosente daw yung tao, hindi mabuburn ang kanyang kamay kahit ilalagay niya sa boiling water. And of course, syempre, pag may conflict, siya din yung supreme commander during war bilang pinuno ng kanilang community. Kasi nga sabi natin, one of the role of the datu is to protect his subjects or the members. Now, please take note that a datu or a raha can be a man or a woman. Okay? The political development of the archipelago was such that there was no national or central government yet. Kasi nga, since we are in an archipelago, konting ano lang yan, mga settlements lang ang meron. In other words, there was no datu strong enough to consolidate considerable power and to unite the archipelago into one nation. Okay? So, how about the acquisition of power ng isang datu? So, number one, it's through succession or inheritance, no? Paano ba? In matters of succession, in the event of the datu's death, pag namatay yung the first son usually succeeded him. If the first son died without leaving an heir, the second son succeeded as datu. In the absence of any male heir, the eldest daughter could become the chieftain. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na it's either a man or a woman could become the chieftain. This clearly indicates that women's rights and abilities were recognized during the pre-Spanish times. Now, if a datu died without any heir or successor, the people of the barangay will choose a man to become the new chieftain on the basis of his wisdom, health, and physical strength. Or if that man or that person proves his or her leadership skills or useful traits in the community, or pwede ring display of prowess and valor in battle. Now, according to Renato Constantino, the datu was not an absolute ruler. The scope of his authority was given limits by a traditional body of customs and procedures. His usefulness to the community earned him respect so that services were willingly rendered to him. However, he could be replaced if for some reasons he was found incapable of leading the community and his position was weakened. And so, with the datu's loss of power, it could be the cause of death. Pag namatay siya at merong succession na mangyayari or mapapalitan siya kasi hindi na niya kayang mamuno. Okay? Now, how about inter-barangay relations during the pre-Spanish period? Now, Sinasabi natin kanina, noon pa man, meron ng pakikisalamuha sa iba't ibang settlements or iba't ibang communities. That is why there is commerce. Nagpapalitan ng mga produkto either by barter. Barter or yung pagkikipagpalitan ng mga produkto sa iba pang mga produkto. Aside from commerce, interbarangay relations could also root from friendship and alliances through sanduguan or yung tinatawag nating blood compact. Bakit merong friendship and alliance? This is to intensify or mas lalong palakasin ang isang settlement or isang barangay or isang community because during these times, maraming beses kung magkaroon ng away ang iba't ibang communities. Okay? Now, the subjects or the members served the chieftain during wars and voyages, helped the chieftain in tilling and sowing of the land and in the construction of his house, and also pay tributes or buwis in the form of crops. So, kung mapapansin nyo, masyadong centralized ang government system during the pre-Spanish era, which means almost all the powers or all the powers rather are being exercised by the chieftain or the datu. So, yon ang nakikitang sistema noon. Very, very much centralized. Okay? So, here is the Philippine social strata during the pre-Spanish colonization or the pre-Spanish era. We start with the Maginoo or the noble class or the ruling class. The Maginoo were the ruling class, the educated class, the royal class, and the privileged class. It was from this class that the datu would come from. The datu is the leader of the community. Okay? So, under this one, andito yung datu syempre at ang kanyang pamilya. The next one is the timawa or the freemen. The timawa probably made up the bulk of the community or the barangay community, and they were free. They could acquire property, acquire any job they want, pick their own wives, and they can also acquire slaves or yung tinatawag nating alipin. However, they are expected to pay taxes and support the Maginoo class. They are also the only class to pay taxes, and ito ang importansya nila sa community. They are the ones who pays taxes. The next one is the Maharlika or the warrior class. They also have all the rights of the Timawa, but they are not paying taxes. So they could also acquire properties, jobs, they could also pick their own wives, they could acquire slaves, but they are not expected to pay taxes because they would provide protection to the barangay. However, a Maharlika could change their allegiance to another barangay by marrying into it or by simply moving to it. This, however, required paying a certain amount to his datu. So, imagine ganun pa rin kataas ang datu or the chieftain. The next one is the alipin. The alipin had the least rights. They are not exactly slaves in the traditional sense, but they were indentured servants. Basically, they served their masters who belonged to one of the classes above them, but it does not mean that they did all the work in the barangay. The Timawa were probably expected to do most of the work in the barangay, and the alipin was likely his or her servant at home, such as yung paggawa ng mga household chores, yung pagluluto, and helps the Timawa in their duties at work. Meron tayong dalawang uri ng alipin. Ito yung tinatawag nating aliping na mamahay and then yung aliping sa gigilid. Yung aliping na mamahay, these were servants that lived in their own little house on the property of their master. Samantalang itong aliping sa gigilid, a servant that lived around the house of their master. However, an alipin can actually become free or become a timawa provided he or she fulfilled the services of their master, and this process is also known as tinimawa. The alipin did not likely make any money for their services and hence they do not pay taxes. Okay? The people who bore the greatest stigma in society were the alipins who were indebted to other alipins. So etong mga alipin na to, meron pa silang utang sa kapwa nila mga alipin. So ito yung mga tinatawag nating bulisik at mga bulislis, no? Aside from these ones, the people also who were considered slaves are those people who were brought from other communities or who were captured in war, and they were considered non-persons until they were accepted in the community. Once accepted, they had the same rights as other alipins. So, kung mapapansin nyo dito, pwede pa rin tumaas ang social class ng isang tao. Okay? During the pre-Spanish period. Now we proceed to the colonial Philippines. Okay? Spain reigned over the Philippines for 333 years from 1565 to 1898. Since Spain was far from the country, the Spanish king ruled the islands through the Viceroy of Mexico, which was then under the Spanish colony. When Mexico regained its freedom in 1821, the Spanish king ruled the Philippines through a governor-general, a special government body that oversaw matters pertaining to the colonies assisted the king in this respect. And this body became known by many names like that of the Council of Indies from 1565 to 1837, Overseas Council from 1837 to 1863, and the Ministry of Colonies from 1863 to 1898. It implemented the decrees and legal codes of Spain and promulgated all throughout many of its provisions in its colonies. It also exercised legislative and judicial powers. So, papaano naman ang government structure during the Spanish era? So, we have here the King of Spain, and then we have the colonial government. So, we have here the executive branch, andito si Governor General, and then the judicial branch, the Royal Audiencia, the Residencia, the lower courts, and then the Governor General. But since we were talking about local governance, we would be talking about the executive branch, no? Unahin natin si Governor General. As the king's representative and highest-ranking official in the Philippines, the Governor General saw to it that royal decrees and laws emanating from Spain were implemented in the Philippines. Now, he had the power to appoint and dismiss public officials, except those personally chosen by the king. He also supervised all government agencies, offices, and the collection of taxes. The Governor-General exercised certain legislative powers as well. He issued proclamations to facilitate the implementation of laws. So, andito pa rin yung parang trabaho dati ng local chieftain during the pre-Spanish period. Then, of course, we have the provincial government. The Spaniards created local government units to facilitate the country's administration. Okay, so at this point, meron na tayong tinatawag na local government units, no? To facilitate the country's administration. There were two types of local government units. Number one, the alcalde, and number two, the corregimiento. The alcalde, led by the alcalde mayor, governed the provinces that had been fully subjugated. The corregimiento, on the other hand, was headed by the corregidor, governed the provinces that were not yet entirely under Spanish control. The alcalde mayors represent the Spanish king and the governor general in their respective provinces. They managed the day-to-day operations of the provincial government, implemented laws, and supervised the collection of taxes. And through they were paid a small salary, they enjoyed privileges such as the indulto de comercio or the right to participate in the galleon trade. So ayan ang provincial government. After the provincial government or under the provincial government, meron din tayong tinatawag na municipal government. Each province was divided into several towns which are known as pueblos headed by the gobernadorcillos, whose main concerns were efficient governance and tax collection. 4 lieutenants aided the gobernadorcillo: the teniente mayor or the chief lieutenant, the teniente de policia or the police lieutenant, the teniente de cementeras or the lieutenant of the fields, and the teniente de ganados or the lieutenant of the livestock. And under these pueblos or towns, meron din tayong tinatawag na cabeza de barangay or itong tinatawag nating mga barrios or mga kabesang. Etong mga barrios, dito na namumuno yung mga dati-rati mga chieftains or the local chieftains. Okay? And ang role lang nila actually is to collect taxes, but they are not privileged like that of the provincial government or the alcalde mayor to participate in the galleon trade. So yan ang Spain. Under the Spanish era, yan ang local government system natin. So from the King of Spain, which is the national government, and then the colonial government through the Viceroy of Mexico, di ba? And then we have here the Governor General, kung saan ang counterpart natin ngayon is the President. Then we have here the provinces or the provincial government headed by the Alcalde Mayor or under the Alcaldia. Ito yung mga provinces fully subjugated, and then the corregimiento led by the corregidor. Ito naman yung not fully occupied by the Spanish troops, no? And then under these ones, the province is further subdivided into pueblos or towns headed by the gobernadorcillos, then of course into barrios or cabeza de barangay, headed by the cabeza. So, kung mapapansin natin dito, napaka-centralized pa rin ng system of government during the Spanish period. Only that ang mga nai-delegate lang is yung pangongolekta ng taxes or pangongolekta ng buwis. Okay? On March 22, 1897, the Katipunan government established the first Department of Interior at the Tejeros Convention. So, ito naman, under the leadership of the Katipunan government, dito naman nag-start yung sa DILG, no? The Department of Interior was enshrined in the Biak na Bato Constitution signed on November 1, 1897, in which Article 15 of the said Constitution defined the powers and functions of the department that included statistics, roads and bridges, agriculture, public information and post, and public order. Now, during the American era, this is the political system of the Philippines. We have here the government of the Philippine Islands, headed by the Philippine Commission, which served as the executive and legislative. And then kung mapapansin natin, Americans also had observed the same form of a centralist government even with the introduction of provinces, cities, and municipalities. this territorial subdivision hasn't established autonomy and that the chain of command was still untouched from the Manila hierarchy. Now, with this power sharing, the Philippines remains under the principle on centralism for centuries, even after political independence in 1946. Now, in 1935, we have here the Commonwealth and Third Republic Constitution, or the 1935 Philippine Constitution. Article 7, Section 10, Paragraph 1 states that the President shall have control of all the executive departments, bureaus, or offices, exercise general supervision over all local governments as may be provided by law, and take care that the laws be faithfully executed. This provided a glimpse of local government policy but is only present in this section. This was practiced until 1972, wherein the presidents and the Congress regulated the relationship between the national and local government by means of executive orders and statutes. As for the DILG, in 1950 the department was abolished and its functions were transferred to the Office of Local Government, later renamed Local Government and Civil Affairs Office, under the Office of the President. On January 6, 1956, President Ramon Magsaysay created the Presidential Assistant on Community Development, or the PACD, to implement the Philippine Community Development Program that will coordinate and integrate on a national scale the efforts of various governmental and civic agencies to improve the living conditions in the barrio residents nationwide and make them self-reliant. So mapapansin nyo, it's still under the office of the president. Hence, it's still considered a centralist. Kumbaga, the practice on local governance is still on the central hierarchy. Andun pa rin sa executive. In the in 1973, the Constitution provided a provision, or the 1973 Constitution provided a provision on local government under Article 11, makikita nyo dito sa screen, and was furthered by the creation of the Department of Local Government and Community Development by virtue of Presidential Decree No. 1 by then President Ferdinand Marcos. So basahin natin at least the Section 1. It states there that territorial and political subdivisions of the Philippines are the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barrios. And it goes down. Okay? In 1972, Presidential Decree No. 1 created the Department of Local Government and Community Development through Letter of Implementation No. 7 on November 1, 1972. Now, 10 years later, or in 1982, the DLGCD was reorganized and renamed Ministry of Local Government, or MLG, by virtue of Executive Order No. 777, and in 1987, it was further reorganized and this time renamed Department of Local Government by virtue of Executive Order No. 262. The 1987 Constitution provided a comprehensive provision on local government under Article 10, making it more responsive to local government units. So, ayan. Kung mapapansin nyo, andyan pa rin, that territorial and political subdivisions of the Republic of the Philippines are the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays, and may nadagdag po as compared to that of Article 11, Section 1 of the 1973 Constitution. It says here, there shall be autonomous regions in Muslim Mindanao and the Cordilleras as hereinafter provided. And Section 2, that territorial and political subdivisions shall enjoy local autonomy. Okay? So, before that, on January 10, 1983, then President Marcos signed the first comprehensive local government code into law o ito yung tinatawag nating Batas Pambansa number 337 which provided the criteria in creating local government units. Ayan yung Batas Pambansa bilang 337, an act enacting a local government code. However, this was repealed by RA 7160, which is now known as the Local Government Code of 1991. Now, on December 13, 1990, the DLG underwent reorganization into what is now known as the Department of Interior and Local Government, or the DILG, by virtue of Republic Act number 6975. On October 10, 1991, under the Aquino administration, the present Local Government Code or RA 7160 was signed into law superseding Batas Pambansa 337. So this Local Government Code of 1991 is the code that is still being practiced until now. So under this code, it provided the criteria used in creating local government units. Okay, so what are these? For the creation of a province, there should be an income of at least 20 million as certified by the Department of Finance, and this area should have a population of not less than 250,000 as certified by the National Statistics Office. As for the land area, the area should have at least 2,000 square kilometers certified by the Lands Management Bureau. Paano naman yung highly urbanized city? Dapat ang income naman neto ay 50 million pesos, still certified by the Department of Finance, no? Ang population, at least 200,000 inhabitants certified by the National Statistics Office, but for this time, PSA na po. And then, provided for the land area requirement for a city, which is at least 100 square kilometers. For component cities or municipalities converted into a city, or in any case, a cluster of barangays to be formed as a new city under Republic Act number 9009, the income should be at least 100 million pesos for 2 years consecutive, no? And a population of 150,000 as certified by the National Statistics Office, and a land area of 100 square kilometers. For a municipality, dapat may minimum income of at least 2.5 million pesos and a population of not less than 25,000 and a land area of 50 square kilometers. That is a municipality. As for a barangay, wala yung income, wala yung land area, for as long as there is a population of at least 2,000, and for barangays in Metropolitan Manila, special metropolitan political subdivisions, and barangays in highly urbanized cities, the minimum population is at least 5,000. Okay? So, however, in the manner of creation, unlike to that of the province, highly urbanized cities, and component cities as well as municipalities na ginagawa ng Congress through Republic Acts, no, through legislations in the national government, the creation of a barangay is on the local level, no? A barangay may be created, divided, merged, or abolished, or its boundaries substantially altered by law or by an ordinance of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan or Sangguniang Panglungsod. So, the province, no, subject to approval by a majority of the votes cast in a plebiscite to be conducted by the COMELEC in the local government unit or units directly affected within such period of time as may be determined by law or ordinance creating said barangay. So, provincial statute ang mangyayari dito. Provincial legislation. If the province or the Sangguniang Panglungsod or the Panlalawigan think that the area could be created into another barangay, sila ang gagawa ng legislation. In the case of the creation of barangays by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan, the recommendation of the Sangguniang Bayan where this proposed barangay is located, concerned shall be necessary. So, kumbaga dito sa atin, for example, in Banawe, we have Barangay Puitan na medyo malaki-laki yung population and they are still on the process. Like for example, magkakaroon ng Barangay Ibayong since they already reach the population of at least 2,000, dapat may recommendation dyan ang Sangguniang Bayan or the Municipality of Banawe dito sa Sangguniang Panglungsod on the province of Ifugao for the legislation of the proposed barangay. So, ayan. So, kung mapapansin ninyo, we have here the different eras, no? Different eras until present, which had a very, very big impact on the development of the local government system in the Philippines, starting from the pre-Spanish, which is centralized or masyadong centralized, na andun lahat ng kapangyarihan, legislation, execution, and judiciary na kay chieftain. Then here comes the Spanish colonization or the Spanish era, which is still centralized. However, may mga delegated powers just like the collection of taxes, and meron na tayong tinatawag na local government. And then we have here the American era, which is also centralized, even with the introduction of provinces, cities, municipalities, as well as agencies, no? Then we have here the 1956 or 1956 until 1986. May mga local government units tayo pero wala pa ring local autonomy. Then we have 1987 to present, which provides for local autonomy in government. So, nagkaroon ng decentralization. So, coming from a centralized a local government system or the government system to decentralized local government system, makikita natin yung evolution ng government system ng Pilipinas. And with that, thank you for listening. And for my students, this is your activity. So number 1, what are the best practices of local governance during the following periods? During the pre-colonial period, during the Spanish era, during the American era, and 1987 to present. And number 2, is a centralized form of government suitable in the Philippines? Yes or no, please justify your answer. And that would be all. Thank you for watching this video.